you have to almost attack those limiting thoughts that you have. One thing I do with people all the time, especially when they are very fearful or very anxious, is in those moments, I will ask them to ask themselves the question, and they have to give several answers. What do I know as a fact?
Welcome to the Midweek Motivation Podcast, where we bring practical help for your faith and life. Here's today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Midweek Motivation. I'm Jess. I am one of the pastors here at Westside, and I'm here with a friend and guest, Nancy Casteel. She is a psychologist and coach, and I'm really I'm really excited about this conversation. We had a guest speaker on Sunday come and join us at Westside, and she did just a fantastic job of diving into this idea that sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes we're like, God, really? Like, are you sure that this is what you're calling me into? When He asks us to step into something big, and she encouraged us a lot in how to step into that. And really, I think that it all boiled down to this idea of fear, and this idea of being afraid of what it is that God's calling us into. And so, being that you are like who you are, Nancy, and you do what you do, I'm sure that you probably address this a lot.
I do.
And so,
if people haven't had a chance to hear Valerie, it's Valerie Bellamy, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't had a chance to hear her, guys, you should go back and listen to her on the Westside feed.
Yeah, it's so good. She's the director of operations for a ministry called Compassion First. If you don't know anything about it, you can get more information for sure on our podcast.
On the website.
On the messaging. Yeah. But what Compassion First does, specifically what we're familiar with as far as what she does, is they go into Indonesia. That's like the capital of trafficking and
of young girls. Yes.
And they go in and they rescue these girls who have been trafficked and basically help them from that point to like living a full, impactful, confident, beautiful
life.
Yeah. And so,
and they have obviously a lot they have to overcome in terms of fear.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's definitely fear that is rooted in some obvious experience.
Yeah.
And so let's dive in a little bit in terms of what stands in. Hopefully, those of us that are listening right now don't have that level of fear that we're having to deal with every day. But even if you do, I mean, let's think about a number of things. First of all, just to look at kind of fear in general. And I like to let my neurological nerdiness come out, because I want people to understand fear within the brain. Okay. Because I think we easily can think of fear, which is in the same family of anxiety. It's a probably in some ways, there's obviously, like, if we're in danger, then fear is not just like, oh, I'm a little anxious. I mean, fear is like, holy cow, I need to do something. It's like fight or flight. Okay. So, but I like to understand it from a brain perspective so people can understand it's not just a feeling that, the brain runs everything. So the brain is a survival mechanism, first and foremost. The mind is that fancy little reasoning thing. Okay. But so we have every message that comes into our brain comes in through our hippocampus, and right next to our hippocampus on either side of the brain sits a little almond-shaped thing called the amygdala. Okay, and why is it right there where messages come in? It's right there because every message that comes in, the amygdala decides, is this something? I mean, are we in danger? Okay, so it is determining what kind of response we need to have if we're in danger. And so it basically is like it interprets threats, if you think about that. So, and in some ways, that's why it's so automatic it happens so automatic, and if it's nothing that's threatening, then it just goes to whatever part of the brain. If it's something that's visual, then it goes to where the eyes are, the visual cortex, et cetera, et cetera. So, but if it is something that is a danger to us, then our survival mechanism, or that fight or flight, kicks in. So that's why you can have people, there's accounts of people who have been running out the door when there's a fire, and then they wake up because the brain had already interpreted the danger and got the body moving. But the mind hadn't kind of gotten all going yet. So it's vital. But it's important. We evolved so that when we were truly in danger, that our bodies would react, our mind and our body would react as such. We in our society now, we overreact to things. And so we have a fear response that can come up far too often. And so why is that important? I mean, it's important not only to understand our fears and how that affects us every day, but it also is important because how can we relax that? How can we soothe that that part of our brain? How can we soothe the amygdala so that it's not overreactive? When we have fear that is like on guard all the time, we actually, over time, they've been able to see that in the brains of people who have chronic fear and anxiety, their amygdala actually shrinks. And so obviously that's not a good thing, because that, we want as much power there to be able to rationally kind of think things through. So so why is it important? It's not important to say like, oh, shoot, then I'm sunk. My amygdala is already small, No, it's so we go, what can we do right now that will help to soothe that? And, so one of the roots of fear is understanding how our brains actually work, and then being able to do some things like have adequate sleep, it's taking care of the machine, adequate sleep, good diet, getting exercise, so that we can actually interpret incoming information appropriately. And so we're not giving the same energy to, I don't want to say public speaking. What would be a good one?
I think public speaking is fair.
but public speaking is huge. I'm saying, but so we don't give like walking into the store.
Yeah.
The same kind of fight or flight that we would,
like a car is coming at you, or
right. Yeah. So, because people can get very nervous about things like that, and very fearful.
Yeah.
And that stuff, understanding the other root causes of it. Well, I mean, our life, how were we raised? What were we raised by somebody that was anxious? Because that can oftentimes be something that makes it even harder.
So that's a baseline
to grow. Yeah. Your baseline is super, super low for what we should fear.
Yeah.
So you're going to fear just about everything. If you were raised by somebody who's basically, what is fear? It's, whoa, what if, what's the danger? Where is the danger? Because it's looking for it all the time. Okay. Yeah. So, and another piece that I think about with, what is the root of fear? It is when we take things that we've gathered over the years about either our memories or our self-perception, like our perception of ourselves, and we paint those often limiting memories, often negative memories, or negative self-perceptions onto events today. So, well, like that's when I hear stuff like, well, I can't do that. That's not who I am, or I'm too afraid to even try, and you were telling me, Jess, about like, for you that stepping into something big,
something that I've never done before, or something that feels huge and impactful, but that I don't have necessarily the skill set, I feel like, to step into that and have the impact that I wanted to have. It's big. And it's hard to step into that a lot of times. Yeah.
But self-doubt's part of that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It is.
Because it's not necessarily what we know for as a fact.
Mm-hmm.
It is what we think.
It is. And it's interesting that to bring that up, because that idea of confirmation bias is something that I've been introduced to recently. And it's, I had this experience, I don't know, when I was 4 and then and it told me something about myself. And then, I don't know, when I was 10, something else happened that confirmed that thing in me. And maybe those two experiences have now painted a picture of myself to me that says, oh, I can't do that. I'm not qualified, or I'm going to mess that up, or, yeah.
Right. Or who's going to want to listen to me on the podcast?
Exactly.
I've felt that a million times. And people would normally think, oh, I'm so confident. My gosh. No, yeah. I just decided a long time ago I was going to challenge myself and not put myself into a box that was the size of my fear. Yeah. I should say it's disproportionate. The box gets smaller the more of where you'll put yourself, the bigger your fear is.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to experience more of life. And so, how do you do that? You have to almost attack those limiting thoughts that you have. One thing I do with people all the time, especially when they are very fearful or very anxious, is in those moments, I will ask them to ask themselves the question, and they have to give several answers. What do I know as a fact? Because fear is not based in fact unless you have a car coming straight at you, or something is endangering your life.
Yeah.
But what do I know as a fact can help you to modulate or moderate when you're spinning on something that is fearful.
Yeah.
Because you can go, what do I know as a fact? This, I've never had a problem coming out of whatever event I'd have to think of something, or I think of you and stepping up on stage, or on the altar, to speak to the church, what would you know as a fact that everybody loves and appreciates you? Well, at church, people love and appreciate you because you're amazing. That you would have to think about those kinds of things. What do I know as a fact? I know as a fact that nobody's ever laughed at me when I've done something at church.
I've done my due diligence and I've researched and I know
exactly
standing on knowledge and experience that I can share with other people.
That you're not going to step onto stage without having done the work you need to do to be prepared.
Yeah.
And so many people do that good, solid stuff, but they're faced with fear and they pull back.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I think you and I are trying to do is to encourage people to really take a look at the whole and understand that that perception limits how much you're going to grow as a human being. And that, what Valerie was so clearly saying is kind of, what does God have in store for you? And God's story for you is way bigger than our stories for ourselves oftentimes.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think about just sometimes in my life when I have been more fearful, and I'm not somebody who tends to be fearful. But part of that comes from having said I'm going to go and backpack. So I'm going to go to big mountains.
Yeah.
And why? And I'm scared. I'm totally scared then. Okay. But I'm also I'm going to prove to myself I can do this. And it probably came from growing up in a household with a father that was very limiting, that definitely, nothing was good enough and all that kind of stuff. So I was almost to a fault going to go, yeah, really? You don't think I can? Let me show you.
I love that. That kind of leads into the next question. I think, how do we learn from what fear is trying to tell us, without letting it define us? And it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about right now. Like,
Yeah.
letting
Be
fear
curious.
be a cue.
Yeah. Be curious about what your fear is telling you. Be curious, but then learn from that and move on
Yeah.
and let it go. Let it go. Know that fear is an emotional response, just like others. And we need to employ our thinker. And that's why I like to go to what do I know as fact, because that's trying to get your thinker back in the driver's seat versus your feeler in the driver's seat. Because making decisions based on your feeler is never going to be the most accurate way of moving in life.
Yes.
It's,
I can confirm that by experience.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, and if you think about it too, it's like funny. It's like the amygdala also regulates things like aggression and stuff like that. So we need to soothe the amygdala, do the things we need to do as human beings so that we even remotely can come into life every day with the ability to rationally respond to things. If we're not sleeping, figure out how you can get to sleep. Go see a doctor. Figure out, just talk about what it is that's keeping you from sleeping. Assess how much caffeine you've got in your system. If you're not eating well, change it. We all can gravitate towards crap food, junk food, whatever. But yeah, just don't make that your whole diet, because that's,
trying to soothe maybe in the not most healthy way.
Yeah, totally. But that's why I like to pair it with the neurological nerd in me, because that comfort food oftentimes slows and makes your brain more sluggish and not able to function
right
to the best of its ability, which becomes like a cycle, like a cycle of a defeatist cycle. It doesn't make us able to wake up the next day and function better.
Yeah. All right. I use that. I don't know where I heard this, but that whole, like, let your tomorrow self appreciate your today self by doing what you need to do today to set yourself up for success later.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
My tomorrow self is not going to be happy that I didn't do the dishes tonight. Set yourself up for success.
Yeah, my tomorrow self will not be happy that I had a big bowl of ice cream every night this week, just because I love Matt and I will do like we got to eat it because it's in the house. We got to get rid of it. Yeah. Okay, no, you could just have it there and have it a little bit at a time. Yeah. But you talked about like limited thinking, how we limit our thinking and how we can get into almost like a victim mentality.
Yeah.
When we live in fear. And I don't want to say it's like, I don't want to look for ways for people to beat themselves up. But a victim way of thinking is that I can't, I'm not, all of that kind of stuff.
The world is against me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If only this person would do this or that person would do that, or this situation would be different, then my life would be fine. If we have the life we have, then what can we do every day to feel a greater sense of purpose, to be more intentional, to move ourselves in directions of goals that we have? If we haven't set any goals, let's start there first. And let's actually set some goals, even if we are not sure we can achieve them, like the big goals. Or let's check in with other people and what they need from us or what we want to be for them. And maybe we set some small goals that are like really doable, but then we set a bigger one that I'd like to move toward in the next year or 2 or 5, and make the steps actionable every day that would get you towards that. Because every little bit of data there shows you, I don't have to be afraid. I was able to do it. Look at me. Look at what I did. Not like, oh, aren't I so great? But like, what have I done that's shown me that I am more capable, that I am more able, so that I can conquer bigger mountains.
I love it. If I could paint a picture, like I've actually experienced this real time. And so when I first started coming to Westside, I was a kid. I was really insecure, very, very, very shy introvert, and basically a wallflower. And I'm sure people have heard me share this about myself, but the thing that I challenged myself with, because I wanted to get better at connecting with people. And when I first meet people, I tend to be awkward. And I know that lots of people feel this way about themselves. I am one of them. And so I hate small talk. I just want to dive in and get into the deep, meaty stuff with people. And not everybody is like that. So I'm awkward at first. But one of the first things that I did to challenge myself was I joined the hospitality team. And I honestly, I did it because I had a thing that I would say, like I had a goal, and that was to make people feel welcome and to smile back at me, really. And and I basically was like, welcome to Westside. Like, I'm so glad you're here, you know? And I could do that and hand somebody a program and be successful at the end of the day without having to deal with that fear that came out of the awkwardness of not knowing what to say to people. Yep. And now I've moved from that to engaging with people on a very regular basis. And I've learned how to embrace the awkward and realize that that's just a part of me. And sometimes it's weird, but we generally will move past it and get into a deep, meaningful conversation, that sweet spot that I love to get to. So one baby step at a time is really it really is a huge it has a huge impact. It's very valuable to take those steps.
Right. But like you said, you created what is the overall goal that you're moving towards. Yeah. And that goal, is only achievable by making actionable steps every day and not getting stuck in a fearful posture.
Yeah.
Because that posture will keep you at home alone, not letting people know who you are, not letting people know what you think, not letting people know what you fear.
You know, as I look back on my life, the people that I admire the most had one quality that was so awesome. It was resiliency. They were resilient people. And what we know about watching how people grow and how they live out their lives is that what makes people resilient is their community. And I want to invite you to take a step into community. If you haven't already done that, if you're not a part of a group that gets together, a group where you're known and you know people, where you can share a little bit about yourself. You know, you have a good day, you can actually say something. You have a bad day, you can actually say something. You're not going at it alone. Community makes resilient people. And if you want to follow Jesus in a deeper way, if you want to get further down the path in your faith, I want to invite you into community. We specialize in this at Westside Community Church, and we've got groups of all kinds at all times. There's one for you, I promise. I want to invite you to look at westsidecommunitychurch.com/groups. Go browse right now. Find a group that meets your schedule. Start there and meets your interests and sign up and check it out because it's going to make a big difference in your faith.
I said it really briefly earlier, but, asking for somebody to give you feedback on how they see you, because after my husband, I'm married to Matt, some of you know that, and but my husband, who died, Trevor, of cancer when he was 48 years old, after that I met a person in me that I didn't know. I mean, because I was depressed and I'd never been a depressive person. I had to learn to care. I was worn out. I was afraid, because now I really understood that this is a very finite life. And for a while I had a really good friend of mine who said to me, maybe we just need to look at you through Trevor's eyes for a while. Because I was so hard on myself. Like, I'm not going to be able to, I'll never, all of that stuff, because I was functioning in a place of depression. And it can be so self-limiting. And I had to work my way out of that. But I also know that I wasn't eating well. I wasn't doing the things, again, to make my amygdala work very well.
Sure.
But I had to plug away at it. It's almost like I had to step outside not in a weird way, but step outside and look at myself and go, yeah, stop. I know better than this. I gotta turn this around. This is not okay. And if anybody who's listening is in that kind of place, I mean, just take a step. Take a step. If it means you're going to get, something at the grocery store that's got some solid nutritional value, then that's a step. Be happy with that. And you made a step, and you're going to get yourself back on track. Did I say this already? I think you and I were talking beforehand, and I don't remember if I said this already. So hopefully I'm not repeating myself. If you're not sure, if you're feeling kind of like, I can't do, I'm not, then yeah, I mean, did I say this? Ask 5 people? Ask 5 people?
No, you didn't. You haven't said this.
Okay. Yeah. So I say, I love this exercise. It's just ask 5 people that you care about or that what do you come to me for? Mm-hmm. And see what they have to say. Because, you may learn that people see you as far more capable than you see you.
Yeah.
You may learn that people see you in ways that it's valuable for you to know. Mm-hmm. But we don't do that. We don't do that kind of stuff. And like I vowed that if I was thinking something about someone, even if I didn't know them, but I was thinking, wow, that's like, even if it's as silly and shallow as like, wow, you look great today, I'm going to tell them. Or if somebody speaks and does something really great or whatever, that I'm going to send them an email, or I just try to do that stuff because we don't get enough. We get so many knocks in this life. I mean, or we perceive so many knocks that it's so easy to get criticism.
Yeah.
And so let's find and believe what people might say about you.
Mm-hmm. Borrow the vision or the view that somebody else has of you until you can build that up for yourself and really lean into it and understand
love that. I love the way you said that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love the way you said it. Borrow the view.
Yeah.
And you were talking because again, I think so many of us have limiting beliefs about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you were mentioning Moses and
Valerie talked about Mary. It was Mother's Day, so she talked about Mary, but I love looking in the Bible for people who are called into big things and seeing how God works through them. And Moses is one of my favorite stories, and I think that he fits in it as an example of this so well, because you can see at the beginning of his life, just even as he came into the world, that God had purpose for him. If you go into to Exodus and read his story, it's crazy. But he takes his passion and he ends up using it maybe in a way that God wouldn't have intended, and then runs away from it. So that's maybe some confirmation bias that happening there. He goes back and he uses that example. And so when he meets God, he's encountering God in this presence of a burning bush that's not actually burning up. And God talks to him and tells him, you're on holy ground. And Moses recognizes that he is speaking to God by his reaction. And so he knows that he's talking to God. And then God is like, hey, my people have been, they're being oppressed and they're being mistreated, and it's time to go rescue them. And Moses is like, me? Like, you're talking about me? No, who am I to go talk to Pharaoh? And God counters every single one of his objections and tells him exactly what he needs to do and exactly how he's going to do it, and that he's going to be with them. And every step of the way, Moses is like, God, I can't do it. And finally, God meets him where he's at, and he's like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to equip you, and this is how I'm going to show that I'm with you. And in Exodus 3, 11 and 12, Moses says, or the Bible says, but Moses protested to God, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" And God answered, "I will be with you, and this will be your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain." And I think that it's that there's something valuable, and I also think it's kind of funny that God's like, you're going to know that it's me calling you and that you are successful by doing it and being on the other side of it.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And think of fear usually has a lot of us not even moving to the action.
Yeah.
The
Right.
fear is keeping us from even doing. So how would we even,
Yeah.
you're going to know that it was me. You're going to know that you did it well by doing it.
Yeah.
So, and truly, I mean, in so many situations, I mean, yes, we have to do things like if we want to drive, we have to learn to drive.
Right.
So there's many things where we have to learn how to do something, but we do it. I was just working with a 16-year-old yesterday who said, I've got my permit but I'm really afraid to drive. And so he's already mastered a parking lot, but he's really afraid to drive on busy streets. And so we talked about like just neighborhood, just start in your neighborhood, start small. And it's that idea again of it's not that he's not going to learn to drive. He will. He's just conquering the initial, that fear response. And it's a fear in many ways. And probably a lot of our fears are kind of a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And the only way they become known is by doing some mental work with it, whether it's mental preparation, if it's actual preparation, research, whatever, if it's talking to other people, if it's just getting a boost of confidence that, hey, you've had, what do you know as a fact? You've had, how many years of success at doing things. You didn't know how to do this, and now you do this really well. Those kind of things. I mean, we all have that stuff.
Yeah.
We all can come up with those things.
Yep.
So
rewrite your confirmation bias. Let it be positive.
There you go. Hey, define confirmation. Can you define confirmation bias? I don't know that I can.
It's a confirmation bias is just like I've experienced something and it told me something, and then something else happened that confirmed that. Let it be a positive thing that you're learning about yourself and not a negative
That's
thing.
Good. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you.
So like the last thing that I think we want to make these things practical, and we want people to walk away with something that they can put in action. And I think the last question that I have is, if God's calling you into something scary, what is one brave next thing that you can do this week that will help you take that next step? And then how do we keep moving when we feel afraid again? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I'm going to go back. First of all, I mean, overall, I find purpose in every day. Find something that you're going to do that's purposeful, or in the things you're doing, be purposeful about them, and intentional. So yes, if you're playing video games for half of the day or whatever, maybe we need to shift off of that and do something and figure out what is something I can do that's purposeful, even if it's helping mom to set the table, whatever, just doing something that is purposeful and outside of myself. But I want to step back too because I talked about like that idea of how do you soothe the amygdala, which is actually going to set you up to do things every day. Yes, I talked about kind of how you take care of the machine, the eating, sleeping, all of that, but also spiritual habits, like making sure that you are spending some time in prayer. reading the Bible, not just for the sake of reading the Bible and for understanding the Bible, that's all good, but reading the Bible as a basis for your perspective that you're going to take in life. Or reading other faith-based books, just things that are going to broaden how you view the world so that it's not self-focused, but it's outward-focused, upward-focused. Doing things like, if you're in a really tough, fearful moment, regulating your breath. Let your breath help you to bring yourself into a more, a place of greater equilibrium. That is 4 counts through the nose, hold it for 4 counts, out through the mouth for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts. Or if you have a lot of hot air like me, I go all 8 counts out, because you want to have the pattern breathing that you want. That most important thing is in through the nose for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, and out through the mouth. Okay. And then, just again, like I said, engaging your thinker.
Yeah.
When your feeler is really in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Look for those things that are grounding. Yeah. I would also add to connect with your people.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. That whole, reach out to 5 people and have them tell you something about yourself that, what do
they come to you for?
Yeah. And I would say, I would also say, if you can identify what that fear is, find someone who's safe and trusted that you can talk through that with. I've got my people. I really have got one person I do this with very regularly. We meet very regularly, and she speaks life into me all the time. And we need those people who see us from that perspective to speak into us. So.
Yes. And it's so, and that may be, if you're married, that may be your spouse, but that may be, if you're a guy, it may be one of your male friends. And if you're a girl, it may be one of your female friends. Yep. But if it can also be your spouse, that's great. If it's your parent, if it's just a dear friend, if it's another family member, if it's someone at church, just find somebody that you can gain, that won't just meet you where you are when you're down, because misery loves company.
Yeah.
Look for somebody that has a bit of a guiding light in them.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, Nancy. You're such a wealth of wisdom, and I love that you can bring together that, help us to understand how God created our bodies to work, and how we can put that together with our practical spiritual life to take next steps. So I appreciate it. It's really great to have these conversations with you.
I love it. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Midweek Motivation. To make sure you don't miss any content in the future, please subscribe, share, and if you enjoyed this, give us a like, and consider popping by a Westside service some weekend. You can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com.